Special Operations Camera in Gomel.
My name is Makonishi Masatoshi.
Japanese intelligence. What was a Japanese intelligence agent doing in Belarus? For the first time in Belarusian history, Japanese intelligence activities have been thwarted. It sounds exotic, but it's the reality of the modern situation. Reports and messages from Gomel to Tokyo were sent under the pseudonym Masa. In July, before leaving Belarus, the KGB detained Japanese citizen lawyer Masatoshi Nakanishi. The method involved tightly restraining his body to prevent him from taking hidden poison, as in the best traditions of Soviet spy arrests. The contents of the Japanese man's laptop would have delighted a certain intelligence agency he intended to visit upon arrival in Tokyo.
Kokukonkai, Japan's National Public Safety Commission. This body oversees the country's national police agency. One of its divisions, the Security Bureau, also engages in counterintelligence and intelligence activities. Within its system is the Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Department, specializing in international relations and technical investigations, including the Yama Intelligence Service, which collects secret information through communication channel interceptions.
However, Nakanishi would probably have first met with Mr. Masanari Sato, his younger sister's ex-husband, but in reality the handler of the inconspicuous Japanese man from Gomel. What are you afraid of? Or who are you afraid of?
Because he has a wedding, connections.
Where?
Intelligence service.
Masatoshi Nakanishi's biography looks unusual and even mysterious. A higher legal education, but he wanted to appear as an entrepreneur, although he didn't live off business income. The company he opened in Belarus, Belmicon International, existed only on paper. In 6 years, no profit, not a single deal, rather losses and fines. They were paid regularly plus taxes.
Meanwhile, the activity of those photos I took near the Ukrainian border, where bridges and railways are, could have been used by the USA or Ukraine for a possible attack. I think they could have launched a missile strike on Belarusian territory. The USA and Japan have very close ties. I did something bad wrong. I regret it.
He moved to Belarusian Gomel in 2018. 2 years earlier, in Kupiansk, which is now at the epicenter of the special military operation, he converted to Orthodoxy. He had been not only in Ukraine during the 2014 Maidan, but also in the DPR and LPR. He made acquaintances there and maintained connections. In correspondence, he was interested in how the situation was developing, considering the special military operation, the battlefield confrontation between Russia and Ukraine. An interesting fact, in 2008, for the first time since the end of World War II, Japan decided to develop its own intelligence service. Priority areas, agent activities, and information gathering on China. Around the same time, Masatoshi Nakanishi's legal career flourished. In 2008, he began actively traveling to Eastern European countries, those that are part of China's One Belt, One Road initiative. The unofficial name is the New Silk Road.
China is impressive, even though it's our enemy. It's awe-inspiring. Its behavior is worthy of admiration.
Gaslight in Japan and China is a business competitor.
However, Masatoshi Nakanishi's official cover of public life was tied to other things. He entered into a sham marriage with a Belarusian citizen, which he later annulled, settled in Gomel, and got a job teaching Japanese at Francisque Skorina University. Although he didn't need money, Nakanishi withdrew 1,500 to 2,000 rubles monthly from his Japanese account. In general, as much as needed, the Japanese intelligence service opened an unlimited account, allowing him to spend unlimited funds. He didn't need to work as a teacher at all, but he took the job, seemingly at the expense of his business. Although he wasn't engaged in it, teaching was a good cover.
Japanese intelligence sounds somewhat exotic at the level. The Japanese intelligence service is a well-established structure with its own style, widely used by state bodies for conducting internal and external state policies. The specificity of Japanese intelligence activities involves recruitment operations either in third countries or directly in Japan. This reduces the risk of diplomatic representation and other negative consequences. This was done by the book. Recruitment was carried out in Japan, the task was worked out there and there.
A huge part of the evidence of his agent activities was collected by the Japanese man himself. He made detailed reports on each day spent in Belarus. He recorded everything in notebooks and diaries. These are the receipts he collected over 6 years. And in this small envelope alone, there are 47 train tickets. It's like living in a small regional town and commuting to a big city for work every morning and back. Our Japanese man did the opposite. From Gomel, he traveled to small settlements and regional areas closer to the Ukrainian border. Masatoshi Nakanishi from Gomel traveled closer to the Ukrainian border. He meticulously photographed roads, bridges, strategic objects like stations and airports. Such photos can't be obtained from satellites, only manually, being directly on the ground. He photographed military infrastructure, as well as railway tracks, for example, where narrow-gauge rails are laid. For engineers in wartime, this is very useful information.
I think before I speak Russian. I speak Russian. I speak Russian. I speak Russian. I speak Russian.
Nakanishi was also interested in the radiation levels in Belarus, how the country is overcoming the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster. He visited the Polesi Radiation Ecological Reserve. But the main focus of his work was gathering business information. Having opened a dummy company, Belnikan International, he contacted companies like Conte, Milk World, Red Food, Spartak, Gomel, and Mogilev Free Economic Zones. Hinted at an interest in cooperation. In reality, he showed unjustified interest, for example in cooperation with China. Many topics we can't name due to their commercial and strategic nature. Another area of information gathering was the socio-political situation in Belarus, from prices and assortment in stores to public sentiment. Are enterprises, schools, universities working? For example, during the events of 2020, the intensity of Masatoshi Nakanishi's communication with his handler from Japan sharply increased. From 1 or 2 messages a month, it became regular correspondence and 6 calls in 2 weeks. He attended rallies like going to work, took photos, and talked to people in the crowd. The second spike in information exchange with his handler was after the start of the Russian special military operation in February 2022. Long conversations, what interests them? The availability of food products in stores, Ukrainian refugees. Are there any? Are there many? Also, Russian weapons and military. Their photos. Are Western sanctions working? The MIR payment system as a way to bypass them. He was detained on the street for photographing strategic objects.
I wanted to know what the situation is at the old airfield. I know in my head there is the old airfield.
Now let's answer the question, who is so interested in all this? Mr. Masanari Sato, a representative of Japanese military intelligence. In civilian life, the director of a water purification equipment company. He gave instructions, advice, and directions to open a company as a cover for obtaining business information. With him, Masatoshi Nakanishi discussed the insecurity of their communication channel. By the way, the Japanese man was indeed very meticulous about these matters. For example, to determine if he was being followed, he would get on a trolley bus and ride the route 3 times in a row, watching the following cars. Additionally, the modest Japanese teacher from Gomel actively communicated with embassy staff. Not in a business, but an informal atmosphere. Usually, very delicate issues are discussed at such meetings, and not only on Victory Avenue. Or late in the evening on September 7, 2021, in the shadows of Belarusian trees in the park on Kulman Street, 2 Japanese men were whispering about something secret. Or even closer to night, April 24, 2022, near the Akademika store. For ethical and diplomatic reasons, we journalists were asked not to mention which embassy staff gave instructions to Nakanishi. I'll just mention his name, Yasushi. I'll add that this contact in Sato's correspondence was called unofficial by Nakanishi himself, and he was very interested in Sato. For example, how best to pay the bill or split it. It should be noted that upon returning to Japan, Masatoshi Nakanishi seemed to expect a big reward. Hence such meticulousness in financial matters. In 6 years of living in Belarus, he took over 9,000 precise photos of the Belarusian-Ukrainian border area. 9,000. And these are not landmarks, but roads, bridges, other logistical communications, military objects, which he was afraid to transmit over the internet and wanted to deliver personally by hand. Do you understand that this is a crime?
Yes.
Do you agree with this?
Yes.
Did you commit this? Yes.
I understand this is a crime.
The first stage of the operation was successfully completed. The Japanese man entered into a sham marriage with a Belarusian citizen, opened a commercial structure whose activities implied frequent trips to the border and to the restricted area. To carry out intelligence tasks, 2 accounts were opened in the Japanese man's name, and 2 cards were issued. One account was replenishable and the other unlimited. The Japanese man signed his messages with the pseudonym Masa. 2 channels were used to transmit information, the main and the backup, with the backup channel organized through the Japanese embassy in Minsk.
The State Security Committee detained Japanese citizen Nakanishi Masatoshi on suspicion of collaborating with foreign intelligence. While in our country, he collected and transmitted military intelligence to Japanese intelligence services, specifically about Belarusian military infrastructure, troop movements, and the current situation in the southern direction, among other things. Additionally, he was tasked with recruiting Belarusian citizens with access to state secrets. During the investigation, which is nearing completion, convincing and irrefutable evidence of Nakanishi's illegal activities was obtained. Correspondence with the center was found on the seized equipment containing reports on completed tasks, financial expenses incurred, and more. Furthermore, operational search activities recorded multiple meetings between the foreigner and representatives of foreign intelligence working under diplomatic cover in Belarus. Nakanishi has been charged with a crime under Article 358 of the Criminal Code of the Republic of Belarus, espionage. The accused is held in the KGB detention center, actively cooperating with the investigation and providing detailed testimony about his illegal activities.